All right, we're gonna jump into a topic that's gonna pretty much anger everybody on each side, but we're gonna go into it. And this comes from actually kind of a debate in the car ride that I had with a friend, and it was a heated debate and heated conversation. But it is something that's affecting us and our nation, and I think it's something we need to talk about and just throw out there and try and find some answers to this. But it's called quiet quitting, and we're gonna start with this.
Employee only does what's required. It's called quiet quitting. No, it's called doing your job. If I'm supposed to go above and beyond, then so should my pay. Don't expect something for nothing, right? Or does that only apply to poor people? Yeah, my employees show up every day, but they don't dress up like Santa Claus and bring me toys, so they're lazy. You're lucky that an employee does their job. I've done so little at work before that it wasn't even quietly quitting. It was technically robbing. When an employee...
All right, and I'm just gonna go through and give some commentary to each of them. This guy's incredibly angry. It's very clear on that. There are some things you'll see in these ones that I don't want to call them kids, but young people do that are they need a lot of explanation. Like he goes into this part where he's like, employees are lucky if their employee does the job. I'm like, well, no, that's kind of why you're there, you know. But in this one, he's just super angry. Let's go with this girl. It's a little different.
You're not quite going above and beyond like you used to. Oh yeah, I'm quiet quitting. What is that? Essentially, I'm burnt out, so I'm just doing the bare minimum at work. Yikes. Can I ask why? One of the reasons is inflation. What does inflation have to do with you doing the minimum amount at work?
Real quick, I'm gonna jump in here. They did a great job of defining what quiet quitting is in 3 seconds or less type thing. Just doing the bare minimum instead of going above and beyond. And in that, people will say, well, work really hard 9 to 5, and then after that, just close the door type thing. But the problem with this video is she cites that she's burnt out, and that's normal. That happens. Heck, I'm kind of getting crispy on the edges. I feel like I'm a bit burnt out of mine where I'm at too. And by the way, I'm coming from this at an angle of an employer, right? So I have 3 companies. I hire people. I manage them. I work them. I'm on the other side. I am on this side of the desk right here, and my employees that I'm hiring, prospective employees, are on the other side, right? And so when she cites that she's burnt out and the employer does the right thing, so like, well, what's causing the burnout? What do you think, And she says, well, inflation is. And I was like, well, how is inflation causing a burnout? That's the misnomer in this.
Well, our company gave me a 2% annual raise, but inflation is at 9%, so that basically means I'm getting a pay cut based on purchasing power.
So she said burnout. I think what she's meaning is she's stressed in other areas of life. Bottom line, right? Sometimes people will use keywords and misdefine things and everything. But she brings up an issue. Hey, my raise is 2%, and life is getting much more expensive. And this is happening for everybody, employers and employees, right? Just because the employers may be making more doesn't mean that they're actually grossing more, right? Doesn't mean they're taking home, or excuse me, they may be grossing more. Doesn't mean they're netting more, right? In other words, they may, instead of $1 million, they may make $1.5 million, but their operating costs might have gone up 60%, right? And eaten up all that type thing. I'm not saying that's true for everything, but I'm saying that's something you have to take into account if you're an employee. But
yeah, to be honest, many employees feel like their salary just isn't cutting it anymore.
And then she kind of goes and then just like gives a plug for her channel. One of the ones I wanted to listen to is this one. This one's actually really good.
Quiet quitting is just doing your job. Here's my take. If your employer is demanding a monopoly over your free time without a paycheck reflecting those sacrifices, it is time for you to loudly quit before they break your soul. Beyonce said, release the wiggle, release the job, release it. We're going to discuss it with Jason Greer. He is a labor and diversity expert and the founder of Greer Consulting. Welcome, Jason. I'm very fired up about this, okay? Because I feel like I'm fired up. I feel like quiet quitting is putting a snappy name on a way for employers to guilt their workers into overexertion.
So again, they recognize a problem, right? And then, at least the workers do. Hey, we're being overworked, right? This is too much type thing. You need to hire other people, and he'll kind of go into that. But they're there are reasons, and you've got to basically you've got to talk to your employer about it, right? Instead of quiet quitting, I think the best solution is to talk to your employer. I mean, what kind, and we'll get into this at the end, but think about it right now. What kind of solution is quiet quitting? Like, what are you doing? You know, what is that going to, how is that going to affect your future? Well, let's get into it.
What's your take on this?
Look, I'm going to tell you this right now. Part of the reason why they call me the employee whisperer is because I speak to thousands of employees per year, and they are saying exactly what you're saying currently. Look, we talk about quiet quitting as though it's some new phenomenon. I used to work for the federal government. Quiet quitting's been around for the past 50 or 60 years. And it basically comes to the point where employees are saying, look, we're not going to continue to give you 60 hours a week. We're not going to continue to put in all this time when you refuse to hire additional employees. And now I'm doing the work of 5 people and I'm only getting paid for my job. And people are having enough of it.
I'm giving the snaps, Jason, because that's how I feel. I mean, I am standing in the gap for all the young people. So how did the pandemic contribute to this?
So he cites that you know, they're doing the work of 2 or 3 people, right? And let's be honest, the pandemic, the last 2 years, 2.5 years, this is, you know, 8/30 of 2022, have not been normal, right? They have affected things have gotten crazy, things have gone off, things have gone wonky, and they have affected everybody, both employee and employer alike. We got to take a step back and recognize that. Number one. Number two, excuse me, there are things that employers and hiring managers and managers see on the backside that employees might not see. In other words, this might be a time. These last 2 years may be a time, a very rare time where we're supposed to make hay while the sun is shining, as they say. In other words, the economy is going well. People are spending money. Let's work. Let's go get it done, right? But they may be saying, hey, in 2 more years, we may, or another year, we may not be able. This may not be the same way it is, right? And they know that and they recognize that. And what they are trying to avoid is hiring 2 extra people to do the work. Of, you know, so you have two people there, and you hire 2 extra people to do the work of 4 people, and then in 2 years, or maybe even as low as 12 months, having to let go of 2 people, right? So in other words, they just shoulder it on those other 2 people because they don't want to hire somebody and then have to let them go again, right? That's one thing you gotta think about from the employer side of you. And you know, same thing as an employee. Do you want to be hired by a company not knowing that in 12 months things may go downhill and they're gonna let you go? No, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So there are some things that are behind the scenes that you can't see. And this is why it's like, you know, good communication is key to this, and being brave enough to ask the question, right? And I know some corporations and companies that it's just not the way it is type thing, you know, and so you got to pick where you work carefully.
Phenomenon. Did going remote kind of blur the lines between the home and the office?
Well, here's one time I'm going to say that COVID sort of gets an unnecessary rap here because quiet quitting was happening. It was basically taking place long before COVID ever hit because employees were saying the same thing over and over again, all the way back to 2015. They were saying our employers are demanding more for us. They're making a bunch of money on products, goods, and services, and we're not getting paid anything, and we're tired. Now you fast forward to the fact that people are working remotely, just as you stated, and their lines between their professional lives and their personal lives are getting blurred to the point where they're never turning off, and people are just getting stressed out, and they're tired of it.
So I feel like
So I've been working from home for 7 to 9 years now, and I will tell you, it is there are some I would say boundaries. There you have to make a distinction, like when to turn it off. Like I'm making this video at like almost 9 at night, you know, and I'm cool with that. But there are times where you, excuse me, I'm showing you I'm tired. There are times where you just gotta learn how to separate it, learn how to stop, and it is a mental thing, right? And so you've got to learn how to turn it off if you're working from home. And they talk about boundaries, and boundaries are good. I'm not gonna say they're not, but you know, how are you gonna enforce those boundaries, right? How do you set those boundaries up? I think the biggest issue with quiet quitting is that you're not, as an employee, you're not talking to your employer right? You're just saying, okay, this is the way we do it. We just do it quietly. Kind of a passive aggressive. I'm going to feel like I'm sticking my neck out in the line. And to be honest, if you're feeling that with your employee, you should just probably find another job. I mean, but uh, talk to your employer about boundaries and stuff, and realize that. I mean, we'll get into this a little later, but if a client calls, it's 4:59. A client calls, are you going to pick it up, even though it might they might, jabber at you for an hour type thing? What are you going to do type? That is what you need to think about beforehand. And if you're in the mindset of, well, it's 4:59, I'm just going to talk to this client for a minute, and then I'm out. I don't think that's going to get you very far in life, but we're gonna go over that at the end.
Like there's a generational factor at play here around what are responsible expectations for work. So is that accurate? What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm going to say this. I'm 48 years old, so I'm in that Gen X category. And the baby boomers basically taught us this. You show up, you do your job. If you're going to complain about your boss, you're going to complain about your job, do it on your drive home, maybe do it at home. Fast forward to millennials and Gen Zers who are actively speaking through the power of social media, and they're talking about the fact that they are tired and they're fed up. And I'm also going to say something. Look, we give millennials, we give Gen Zers a bad rap, but the fact of the matter is, you're not going to find a more honest generation of people than the millennials and the Gen Zers. And what I like about it is the fact that they were so honest. Now we're having this crucial conversation that had been murdered for the past 20, 30 years, but now people are actively talking about it.
Jason, as a millennial, I appreciate you giving us our props.
I got you.
My last question for you is about these companies, because I think some of them are going just way overboard to monitor what their employees are doing while working remotely. What role do you think that plays in this quiet quitting phenomenon? And what should employers consider about flexibility in the workplace?
Well, I think, here's what I'll say, is that we have to be fair to companies, because if I'm going to continue to employ you and you're not actively working in the office, but you're doing something remotely, then we have to have some level of checks and balances at play. But I think on the other side that employers, and this is why I love where we're going currently with with the workforce and the workplace, is that employers are actually having to ask a bigger question. And that is, are we about just employing people, or are we about understanding where people are coming from in terms of their needs, in terms of their wants, in terms of their desires? Because if we start to really capitalize on that, we're not only creating a more productive workplace, but we're actually doing the right thing by our employees. Because I say this time and time again, that people will work for money, but they'll die for respect and they'll die for recognition. But Simone, how you want to be respected might be different than how I want to be respected. How you want to be recognized might be different than how I want to be recognized. But that's where it comes in. Look, if you can build a phone and you can put millions of songs on a phone, you can at least sit down and actually conceptualize how we can go about embracing people for who they are.
So I really like that. I think he was as much as he could being fair to both sides. Now he does talk to mostly, at least he cited that he talks to mostly employees. I'm not sure if he talks to 2,000 business owners or hiring managers or managers per year or whatnot. But I think he did a really good job of threading that needle right there. He said, hey, employers, we got to be fair to them. They're paying you, and they've got to make sure that you're working like they're paying you for, like you're being responsible to work, because you're not in the office. Again, working remotely, let's be honest, it's a luxury. It's not a requirement. It's not a right. Okay, working remotely is a luxury, and it may get to the point to where people are used to it so much that they consider it a luxury, and it may be one of those items that it's kind of like, some tech companies are giving like free lunch or beanbag chairs now. It may come to that, but in the end, it's a luxury, and we've got to keep that in mind, right? So let's get to some other thoughts. And his main part in the last little bit was great. He said basically it's all about, a lot of it's about communication, telling your employer and having your employer want to know about that, right? I'm gonna go over some notes of mine real quick on why I think quiet quitting's gonna backfire, but I think these videos did a great job of just setting the scene for it, right? The biggest thing about quiet quitting in my mind is that you're not investing in yourself, right? Quiet quitting, what it is basically saying, hey, I'm gonna quote unquote set up some boundaries, really, and work hard 9 to 5 and everything. And after that, just let it go. And when you're working from home, I get that there are some times to where you've got to disconnect, and it's a mental and it's an emotional um, thing to do it. It took me, and in my experience, it took me about 2 years to get it down to where I could actually handle it. Right, 2 years to where I didn't have to like worry about when I'm going to dinner or something like that. Hey, how much am I spending? Because I'm on commission only. I didn't have to think about my job. Right, I didn't have to think about my work. So that's gonna take some time. And sometimes what you do, this is what helped me, is I just got so worn out that at the end of the day, I said, hey, I don't care if the office burns. I don't care. It can burn down today. I'll be back tomorrow to sweep up the ashes. But for right now, whatever, right? One of the guys told me what he would do is, or this is more of a story, is every day after work when he pulled up, he'd take off his tie and he'd put it on the tree in the front yard, right? And he said, I quit. And he'd walk in, have dinner with his family, go to bed, and the next morning he'd walk out, put the tie back on, and say, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to start my day again. So in his mind, there was a physical thing that he changed to help him put him in the right mindset, right? Or you can be like, screw it type thing, let it burn, whatever works for you, just find something that works to make sure that there's that separation. Um, but again, quiet quitting doesn't invest, you're not investing in yourself. You're not investing in your growth. You're doing the minimum to get by, right? Think about what if you are at the top of the food chain, right? What if you're owning the company, or what if you're managing people? Like you have a sales force or a team of like 12 people. How are you going to see quiet quitting? And some people would say, hey, it's a great, respect their boundaries and everything. That's cool. But what happens with productivity, right? What happens with that? Like, what kind of culture are you building? Are you building the, hey, let's do the bare minimum culture, or hey, let's charge the hill kind of culture? Um, and make sure you know which culture you're getting into when you get it for the job, when you sign up for the job. Again, you signed up for the job. You don't have to have that job. That job does not have to have you there. Right now there's some shortages, and some, again, the system's kind of wonky right now, so some things are happening that don't normally happen, and you may be able to get away with quiet quitting, but you are not going to get away with wasting the time to not invest in yourself, to be better at a job, at a certain skill, and to really achieve goals, right? Some people talk about the hustle culture, and they say, oh, it's horrible. And granted, yes, hustle culture has its downsides, but at the same time, you got to realize it's what has made our nation the greatest in world history, right? Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, um, heck, even Solomon in the Bible type thing. You talk to anybody that works for them or worked for them, and they'll say they were some taskmasters, man. They wanted something done. They wanted something done right now, today. Get it done, and you're gonna stay here till you do it. And they really, really push people hard, and they accomplish so much. They are the top tier individuals in our society, right? And they make amazing things, amazing products for us. Those things aren't going to happen unless they push people, right? Um, my point is this, there is value in hustle culture. Quiet quitting tries to poop all over that, right? And you can be a part of that, and you can benefit from that if we're in a mindset, a culture set of, hey, this works, right? It's okay to have it. If you're not, then hey, go to a small town, um, and get an easy job type thing, and we'll get into that a little more. Well, actually, we'll jump into it. But that begs the question: what happens in the consumer side of quiet quitting, right? Because right now we're focused on, hey, me, I. My job. Which, if you've ever been in a relationship, you know that doesn't really work very well for the relationship. But let's look at hustle culture from the other side of the coin, right? From the other side of the glass as a consumer. When's the last time you went out to grab dinner, to go to the grocery store? Like you had to make a last minute trip for something. When's the last time you went out to get gas at night, right? You had to fill up your car type thing. What if everything closed at 7 p.m.? When's the last time you went out for entertainment, for a movie, right? what what if everything closes at 7 because those individuals that work in that area, they've got to get to be with their family at dinner. I mean, hey, they're like, hey, let's quiet quit, at 7 I'm done. I've got to have my dinner with family at 8. Um, we don't look at the way quiet quitting affects us as consumers. What if your iPhone just stops working and you can't go to the Apple store, right? Because hey, it's 7 o'clock and it's closed, 7:30 and it's closed at 7. Or or you get there at like 6:50 and the guy says, "Yeah, this is gonna take more than 10 minutes. You're gonna have to come back tomorrow." Alright. Man, a lot of people be furious, right? But that's how quiet quitting affects us as consumers. And if you're a person that's like, hey, I don't care, I just want to have my boundaries, cool. Or if you don't believe that it's a bad thing, whatever, go to a small town, go to a beach town. They shut down when the sun goes down. They shut down, man. That's the way they. It's a nice place in my mind to relax and to go. But yeah, I'm not very effective or efficient or get a lot done. But if that's your mindset, go take it. See if you enjoy it, and if you do, just stay in that town or that beach town. Find a new job there, and do your. I'm not even gonna call it quiet quitting. I'm gonna do relaxed work there. Punch in at 8:39. Whenever, and then punch out whenever, and be okay when they don't pay you as much, right? Be okay uh, when there's not as much pay as there's expectation, or the expectations match the pay, right? Be okay with that. One of the other things that they said, we're going to go back to, the biggest thing is a lot of times, and this kind of goes back to the conversation in the car, because I asked my friend, I said, hey, what, as an employer, what, and you're interviewing or something like that, what are the first things that you're going to ask for and such? And she talked about pay and boundaries, and it was me, I. And I don't know if you've been in a relationship or had kids and stuff like that. Those things don't fly. We give passes to kids because they're children, but when it's in a relationship or with another human adult, we're like, yeah, I don't want to be around this person, right? If as an employer, if an employee says, hey, how much pay? Is that the first thing out of her mouth? I'm gonna say, hey, goodbye. I know what you're working for. I know what motivates you, and if someone gives you 50 cents more an hour or something like that, you're leaving and go with them. So I'm not going to use my time 3 to 6 to 9 months to train you and get you up and running. Where, by the way, you're not producing as much as you're worth pay wise in that time. I'm actually taking a hit on my pay, and I'm just going to find somebody else. That's just the mentality of employers, because when you're the first day on the job, take the first, like, some places, the first 2 weeks on the job, man, you're just trying to figure out how to get your passcode, your card, and you're trying to find out how to get to your office and park and everything. There's there's a lot of training that goes into it, and you're not being very productive. You're not giving back to the company. You're just absorbing a paycheck at that time. So um, my point is, with that, is that when you first get hired, the company is actually taking a deficit for you to be there, right? With the thought that you will be there and pay that back over the course of years, right? I think quiet quitting comes from a place where we get into the mindset that all we have at the core of it, we get into this mindset that all we have to do in a job is to just put the years in. Like, we don't have to grow as a person. I think the personal growth has exited the employment mindset, or has it? That's the question I'm asking. Because I think at the core of quiet quitting, we talk about boundaries and stuff, but a lot of time pay and what I'm worth comes up, right? Like, I think Camp here, she's like, paying me for what I'm worth. I know he did, paying me for what I'm worth, right? Well, this is why I love a production based industry that I'm in. I can tell you what you're worth from what you produced. you know, in any sales position, like, your worth shows from the sales you do, type thing, over a period of time. I don't have to guess. It is not this ambiguous. Well, I'm worth this much type thing. I produce this much. No, well, the numbers either agree with you or they don't. But in business, we have a saying: the numbers don't lie, right? Um, so part of me wonders if that is at the core of quiet quitting, that I want to do less and get paid for more. Or I don't have to grow as a person. I just have to have years in this industry. Um, I wonder. I wonder. So, and I'll do a quick, a very quick story on that. So, two teachers, one had been there for like 10 years, and every year she'd won an award type thing. And there's a new teacher that came in, and and it was their year three, right? And there's a new principal this year that was handing out awards. And this one year, what's one teacher that got the award every year for being the best teacher, or the best teacher? She was expecting the award. Long story short, the new principal gave it to the teacher in 3 years, the 3 year old, not 3 year old teacher, but the teacher that had been there for 3 years. And the 10 year old, the teacher that had a 10-year-old tenure, say that 3 times fast, went to like, what's wrong? What's happening? I've been here 10 years. I deserve it. I'm better type thing. And the principal looked at her and said, hey, I know you've been here 10 years, but you've been teaching, um, you've been teaching as a teacher, as a first year teacher 10 times. This new teacher has grown. And so they've been teaching as a third year teacher this year. So that's the point, right? Sometimes we're just in a position and we do it, but we don't grow, we don't learn. And I think quiet quitting is an encouragement to not grow as a person, right? So how do we solve this? Um, One, be more transparent with your employer. Like, just ask them hard questions. Take them down. Talk to them about that. Blatantly ask for more pay. Okay. Um, if this doesn't happen, find another job. And I'll tell you a way to get more pay, or to get on the radar. Um, if Up manage your employer, right? In other words, what is that? That's going to them and saying, hey, I've done this, I'm done with this, I'm struggling with this. It might take me another 2 hours, whatever. You got anything else for me? Or, hey, I'm going to have 2 more hours later today. Do you need me to do anything else before I leave? Something like that. That'll get you some great bonus points, right? Up managing, especially to your manager or the owner of the company. That is going to be amazing type thing. Um, Sometimes you don't. If like this guy, he's angry as anything. Find another job, dude. Stop working the job you're at, and that's your fault. If you're at a job and you're unhappy, you don't have to wait for the job to change, because most of the time it's not. Find another job. And I know we need money. That is a big need. I'm not denying that, but I think if we look at people's lives, they can make cuts and such like that to make a change in employment, or to risk and to do that. The next point is work for yourself, or to work for yourself. Um, they can do that. People don't want to change, right? They just want to stay in the same place they are and complain. And here's the last thing. I'm kind of run through this pretty quickly, because to be frank, this is the second time I did this video because the audio didn't work. But get some wisdom from an older, wiser men and women who have been successful, right? And I'm going to end on that. So let me go through the list again. Be more transparent with your employer. Actually stand down and talk to them. Tell them that you're burning out. Tell them, what the real issue is. Because if you are a great producer and you're a great asset to the company, they want to keep you. They want to keep you. They really do. And they're going to help work through that. And with that, like, this lady comes and gives her a problem. When you go to your employer, give a solution. Okay. Don't just say, hey, I need to make 7% more because of inflation. That's just giving your employer or your manager a problem. And we already have a ton of problems. We don't want another one, right? But instead, go to them and say, hey, how can I help the company make more income, or, help the company save more money and make more, um, so that I can get, a 7% raise because inflation is killing me. And in there, right there, you've given them a solution, right? That one's a little it's not a direct one, but it's an idea, a tract of how to do it. And I bet you they're like, hey, you can do this, this, and this, or do this for me. And at the very least, you've shown your employer, your manager, that you really care about this company, and they're going to care about you back, right? The core of this issue is that it's the me, I without helping the other person. A key to people is that you help them first, and then you ask for help second. So be more transparent with your employer. Ask for more pay. Find another job. If that doesn't work out, work for yourself. you might be really happy. You'll work a ton more, and you'll definitely struggle with some boundaries, but you might be a lot happier. And you get some wisdom from an older, wiser men and women who've been successful. And that's what we're going to just talk with the Texan. This was just a really good clip that I'm going to play part of it for you, but you guys can listen to the whole thing.
Clear, you're throwing a little bit of chump change into it. If I make you great returns, you're still not going to stick with me. And if you do bad, you'll just cry and whine. And so you've got to figure out what you want to do as far as dealing with the current American workforce, because the American workforce today predominantly is jaundice. It is expectant. It is spoiled. It is short term. It is not even looking down the road. They're barely looking in front of the dash of the car. They want to know, is there a better offer down the street? How fast do I change positions? How fast do I switch roles? And I mean, I've interviewed these folks and I talk to them and I'm like, well, why are you looking for a job? You have a good job. Yeah, but I've been here 4 months and I think I can get a better opportunity somewhere else. So you took a position with a company, you committed to them. They started training you. You're getting paid what you asked for, what you accepted. 4 months later, you're online looking for another job. Well, you're Johnny come lately. You're never going to stay with the company. You're always looking for a better deal. And you'll run out of room in your early to late 40s. You're going to run out of room because let me tell the entire audience listening today, by the time you're in your mid 40s, maybe even up to your 50s, you have defined who you really are for the most part. There's the outliers. There's those who will remake themselves. They get famous. They do a viral video, whatever. But I'm telling you, 90+% of the people in this world are who they're going to be by the time they're 45 to 50 years old. You're going to be a drunk. You're going to be a drug head. You're going to be lazy. You're going to be smoking dope. You're going to be a hard worker. You're going to be a workaholic. You're going to be a construction worker. You're going to be an uptight executive in Wall Street. You pretty well have defined it. You've also done the same thing in your personal life. You're a spendthrift. You're a party hound. You're a drunk. You're a womanizer. I mean, I don't know what it all is. On the flip side is you're a soccer dad. You got 4 kids. All you do is barbecue and go on vacation. Everybody knows, man, that guy is a great dad. This is what he does. You're defined. Ladies, you're defined. It's the outlier. It's the exception to the rule that finally breaks out. But here's why I'm telling you all that. When you're looking at the American workforce and you start interviewing, you start talking, you start having group think tanks, and you start discussing the needs in your own business or the needs for where you want to work, the longer you take to stop being a fair-weathered employee, the longer you take to stop thinking about becoming a franchise player for a company you want to work with, the longer you take to say, I'm not really a good employee, I'm going to stop applying, I'm going to go start my own job. Even if you mowed grass, you'd be better off. So the truth of the matter is the American workforce has changed. It's dramatic. What's wrong with it? It's very simple. It is short-term minded. It is not very well skilled in the social attribute. It is expectant. It is spoiled. It is, in my view, significantly underskilled, and it lacks in uniformity when it comes to the basis and the basics of what a company is there for. So let me tell you what I see.
All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. And that was, this guy's intense, and I love that about him. But you know what? He's right on the money. And so I'm going to leave you with that in the hopes that, hey, you'll take a look at it. You'll learn from a guy who's older, who's wiser, who's been there before. He's not better than you or smarter than you or anything. He's just done it before and learned, and is 10, 20, I mean, in his case, probably 30 years ahead of most of us, right? Learn from him. Find people in your life, good old gray hairs, bald hairs, you know what I'm saying, that have been successful, and listen to them, right? And I say this because he hits it on the head that by the time you're, I would say 35, 40, 50 years old, 35 or 40 years old, you've cemented who you are, right? So a lot of quiet quitters are younger millennials. Let's not cement ourselves to mediocrity. Let's not cement ourselves into people who are just doing, to be known as people who just do the minimum. Let's go out there. Let's work our tails off. Let's be better. And then let's ask for a raise. Let's ask for some extra time off. But let's earn it first and ask for it second. And I'll leave you guys with that.